Hello everyone, this is Lisa Mona back at it again. This time with not a review, but this is a series that I would like to do a lot more. This series is called the Analysis Series, where I look at my favorite characters in manga, anime, or shows, comics, and analyze them to see how and why they're so good. Not just that, but I also would like it to help other people apply it to their writing. So, as you can see from my last video, which was Demon Slayer, I would like to analyze more on the female characters in Demon Slayer. Now, of course, Demon Slayer is not a perfect anime. And really, the number one female character, Nezuko, has gotten some criticism for the fact that she's a little bit like a Pokemon. The fact that she kind of only comes out and fights for Tanjiro when he's in danger. But other than that, she doesn't really have much other characterization. Now, I already addressed these kind of criticisms and opinions on Nezuko in my last video, which to summarize, was mostly about how it's more to accentuate Tanjiro's character. And even though it's a little disappointing that she's more of a mascot and lost her humanity, so therefore we can't see her thoughts, it does have a reason for it. It wasn't just made out of the blue. Though that doesn't mean that fans will still not be disappointed or unsatisfied with Nezuko's character. Makes sense. I mean, she is one of the main characters of the series, and yet she kind of doesn't have that much of a spotlight. But while Nezuko might be a little bit of a downgrade, that doesn't mean that other characters aren't. In fact, Demon Slayer, in my opinion, has one of the best kind of female characters there is. And even in the Western world, or in this case America, there's been a lot of fans that have been having issues with how female characters are written. One of the biggest examples and mainstream ones would probably be Rey Skywalker from Star Wars or Captain Marvel from the Marvel Universe. Both of these franchises have big heroes that are praised for their characterization. Yet, when it comes to these two, they're not really well liked. And why is that? Well, we'll be analyzing today on what good aspects make a good female character, and how you can help your audience like a female character without forcing it upon them. Segment 1. Likability. Now, one of the biggest main issues when it comes to characters like Captain Marvel is most likely their personalities. When it comes to Rey is kind of bland. It's really hard to describe her personality because when I watched the movie, she mostly just had a little bit of a stubborn in tone, usually didn't listen to others, and was most likely had courage, but was too overly brave. When it came to Captain Marvel, there was a similar problem. Captain Marvel had the opposite problem. She was way too boring. A lot of the time, she felt like she knew everything, and in the end, the movie, she was proven right, which kind of makes it very boring because it's just watching a character get proven they're right, when no one in the first place really doubted her. And there's also the fact that when it comes to the actress, I don't want to be mean to Brie Larson, but it seems like her character wasn't given much time to add in comedic tone or something that would really make her likable in a way. Something charming. I mean, if you made a male actor do the same thing, I would actually find the same character quite boring. It's like the Dan Sider's Man of Steel, with Henry Cavill as Superman. I found it quite boring, and even though I love Henry Cavill as an actor and as a person, his acting was just not given any time or anything charming, and it made him quite boring to watch, and therefore the movie was quite boring to watch. This is the same issue I have with Captain Marvel. Both don't have much work to do with the script, and to really act anything that could be remotely interesting or even relatable. Usually ways to make a character likable is to make them relatable. Have a trait something that you can relate to. Now, that doesn't mean inserting yourself into the story. This just means that an aspect about yourself that usually a lot of people can relate and sympathize. Now, this is something that Demon Slayer gets perfectly. Almost with every character, but I'll show it for the two top female characters, Mitsuri and Shinobu. Mitsuri has the ability of being a hopeless romantic. We all had those schoolgirl crushes or schoolboy crushes, and we all had that awkward, extroverted friend that always tries to make friends even when no one wants to. This personality is highly put upon Mitsuri. It makes her quite memorable of a character, as you see how much she falls in love with every person, even though they probably didn't do much of anything. There's also the fact that Shinobu has a similar tone. She has a likable, kind persona, but in reality, she's quite sadistic in personality than what is she shows. This can be relatable to a lot of people because when you're dealing with others, sometimes you can put on a facade, a persona, and hide your real self a lot of times. Or you know someone that acts in one way, but acts into another way and when near someone they're close to. This is the reality that Shinobu lives to. And while it's not for a funny reason, like Mitsuri, where Mitsuri he just kind of wants to marry someone stronger than her, but doesn't really know the fact that she's probably one of the strongest Hashira, and therefore it makes it even harder. Shinobu has a more or sadder reason for her hiding of persona. Either way, these kind of character traits can make one highly relatable or at least memorable. And remember this character as either charming, or even just remember them as that one character that's kind of cool and kind of funny. Either way, this can at least give your character charm, and is the reason why they're remembered so fondly. You can also easily know how Shinobu and Mitsuri would act with each other or other characters due to how defined their personalities are. With Captain Marvel and Ray, it can be a little bit hard to visualize how they act. Even when they do act, it usually probably wouldn't be as good. For example, in Endgame, when Captain Marvel interacts with the other characters, it's mostly her being very, very stoic and also kind of beat. And also, the other characters somehow liking her even though she kind of didn't really do anything. And even when she is given times where she could be a hero, like for example saving Tony Stark, there's not much added to her character to really make her have a personality after that. These opportune times to make her charming in some kind of way, or even funny, makes it really hard for anyone outside of their already perceived bias to really latch on to Captain Marvel. The only reasons some people will attach themselves to Captain Marvel is mostly because they kind of look like them, or that she's advertised as a girl superhero, and she's one of the few girl superheroes. Those aren't really big, long-term reasons, though, to make big fans or veteran fans like her. The same can be said with Rey, but there's so many issues in the new Star Wars movies that it can be blamed on the whole movies itself than on Rey's character, really. Honestly, they don't really know what to do with Rey as a character. She's quite literally whatever the writers thought they were. At one point, she's just a hapless person with no parents who abandoned her. In the third movie, she's somehow the granddaughter of Palpatine and has all the Force powers. This is another example of confused writing. The writers did not know how the goal was for Rey's character arc, and therefore she suffered for it. Now, all fans of Star Wars hate her, or at most don't really remember her, and at worst, she's only used as a prop for ships, which is, won't go into that rabbit hole. Either way, these both characters aren't remembered fondly, and usually remembered for their worst moments. And this is because of the writing, and not because they're girls, although some people may say otherwise. But, as you can see from the past, many people can like girl characters, and even girl main characters. And, from the past as well, like Wonder Woman, there can be girl superheroes. And people can like and love girl superheroes. It's just unfortunately that when the writing's bad, the character will suffer for it. And now people, when they think of Captain Marvel or Rey Skywalker, all they think about is the bad aspects and dislikability. And anything related to them, also disliked. Now, if we go back to Demon Slayer, we can see that even though Mitsuri and Shinobu are side characters of the story, they're still so loved that they're on multiple products and merchandise. Mitsuri herself has as a whole spin-off where she and Rengoku have more in-depth character arc. By the way, the spin-off of Rengoku is really good and you guys should read it. Anyways, let's go into the second part, which is flaws. Segment 2. Flaws. Every character that ever was written usually has a flaw of some kind. It can be in their personality, physically, or even emotionally. Either way, outer conflict or inner conflict, a character must have a conflict to usually be a successful writing. Now, if we look at Rey Skywalker or Captain Marvel, we can see that their conflict is mostly outer. Captain Marvel especially. She's mostly struggling with how other people are putting her down, and not exactly inner conflict. In fact, the whole point of the movie is more about how she's laying out her powers finally, and she's being proven right to be how special she already was. Now, this lesson in itself could have conflict, but it's not exactly a lesson that can't be written well. Captain Marvel, mostly doesn't have conflict or doesn't struggle with most of the fights she does. She mostly wins all of them, using her wit or strength, usually her strength, to get through any conflict she has. But even though this strength can be used and characters in the past have that traits, like the Hulk, for example, this doesn't really make her look heroic exactly. For example, there was this guy who was saying for her to smile in the deleted cutscene. And in response to that, she almost broke his hand and took his motorcycle. Now, this scene itself is not very heroic and not very likable. Even the guy was being jerkish, or in your opinion being jerkish, it still was unreasonable for her to abuse her powers like this. Rey Skywalker is similar. Although she does have inner conflict with her parents in her origin story in the Force, there's still the conflict, that fact that she doesn't really struggle with it. Or in terms of every time she does struggle, it's usually gotten through with easy time. And even at that, any struggles she does have are usually written off or retconned. For example, her parents, she struggled with being a nobody and her parents abandoned her. This could have been an easy backstory, an easy way to make us relate to Rey. It's really hard to get over someone that abandoned you, right? Well, of course not. Those parents really actually liked her, and Palpatine killed them. So really, she doesn't have to struggle with that at all. Talk about our amateur. Now, everything that we tried to relate to in the second movie is all retconned in the third movie. How can we even relate to this character, or even like her, when we don't even like the movie itself? As you can see, these two female characters have little struggles. Physically, they have almost none. And even if they do, it's usually gotten through without too much strength. Now, let's contrast this with the Demon Slayer characters Shinobu and Mitsuri. Now, Mitsuri, she actually has the qualifications to be a potential Mary Sue, or potentially overpowered. Mitsuri has a super strength, or what we call tenfold muscles, which basically means that she doesn't look like a Hulk, but she has the strength of it because her muscles fold in. This also means that she can eat a lot without getting too big. Now, while this is the dream for any woman, I would say, it can also be potentially bad for fights. I mean, if she's the strongest woman ever, what kind of struggle would she have? Well, as you can see, with how she's a hopeless romantic, she wants, and her dialogue, a strong man to marry. Only problem is that she's probably one of the strongest women in all Japan. As you can see, there's a clear struggle here. Mitsuri has a really brazen personality and very unique looking, but this is not exactly every man's dream. At least in the Demon Slayer world in Edo, Japan, where uniqueness is not exactly valued. As you can see in her origin story, her main struggle isn't not with any demons at all. It's actually with herself. She hides her own muscles in the fact that she eats and dyes her hair black because of how conflicted she is with herself. She has a really main struggle in her heart of should she be her true self and yet have no one to love her, or should she hide her true self and have someone love her but for not who she is? These kind of struggles are actually very relatable to any person who's been through love or just trying to interact with more people. Mitsuri even has a physical struggle because when she becomes a Demon Slayer trained Goku in the spin-off, she actually struggles a lot trying to fight. Because of her breath style, she was doing fire breathing style, but realized that it didn't fit her a way of fighting because she was so strong. Therefore, when she learned how to do her own love breathing style, she could finally go into her own and learn how to fight demons effectively. This goes to show how heroic she is. Even though she has a family with a brother and siblings and mom and dad, and wasn't even killed by demons or even interacted with demons at the time, she still went into these dangerous situations where she could die at any time because she knows that this is a job where only she can do and that she can protect people and also potentially get a boyfriend, but that's besides the point. Anyways, it's really a heroic thing to do, go into dangerous situations because you know that it's the right thing to do and that only you can do it. Let's go for Shinobu as well. Shinobu has a physical struggle that's outer as well. Her sister was killed by a top demon ranking. And not just that, but her physical frailness is that she's actually smaller than most women, and therefore can barely actually cut a demon's head with a sword. Therefore, she tries to adapt to this, using poisons on her sword tip and using faster techniques to get it to dodge more attacks, as in the average Demon Slayer. This struggle is very apparent, especially in the last battle she has. She always doubts herself and has almost a victim complex in her head sometimes, that she's never good enough, even though she's probably one of the top people in the Demon Slayer organization. This is spoilers ahead, so please skip it to this number if you don't want to hear it. But Shinobu actually passes away and dies in the manga, which tells how much she struggles. This poetic moment of how she was killed by the same demon that her sister was is actually a twist in the fact that she put her body a bunch of wisteria poison to kill the demon and that ingested her, just like a butterfly that is poisonous. And in a way, actually is very dark because she was prepared to really die for revenge of her sister and was willing to sacrifice a life of peace just to get revenge. And this kind of story is very poetic. It also really shows the in-depth struggle she had with her victim complex of being smaller, and the willing she is to go to kill the demon for revenge. This deep flaw in Shinobu was led to her downfall, and really cements her as one of the top female characters in Demon Slayer. Now that we got both the flaws out of the way, let's go to our conclusions of what we learned. Segment 3. Conclusions. Going to depth about female characters can be hard. I mean, do we have to talk about being a female every time we write a female character? Of course not. especially when every character can be different. Sometimes it can be beneficial for a character to mention how their gender is. It affects the world, but sometimes it isn't. Really, it depends on your story. But if you really want your female main character or side character to be more iconic, learn from what we had today. Make your character memorable and likable. Have them have traits that a bunch of people can relate to, and personalities that are going to stand out among other characters, where you know where they would act if they were with other characters. And you don't have to bend the knee of the story or your other characters to make them likable. 2. Make sure that they have flaws. Every character has flaws. Make sure if this is inner conflict or out of conflict, they don't get out of it unscathed. This can really help your character show how much they changed or grew throughout the story. If a character is a hero, make sure they do something that's heroic. And if a character is a villain, make sure they do something villainous. But most importantly, make sure you keep this conflict in the story. One big thing that people don't like about Ao Rei is the fact that they keep retconning it every story and keep changing it. Big twists are okay in stories, but you have to foreshadow these twists or turns so that your audience feels satisfied and not scared of what they were going into. Lastly, if you want to add a female character in your story, don't really shove them in and make other people like them. Your audience can't be forced to like any character you write. But that doesn't mean they can't be impressed by what writing you do have or design. Really, the issue with female characters isn't the fact that they're female. It's the fact that their writing needs to be consistent. Personally, I don't really care if there's a story about sexism, about a female character struggling to be a female. But if their writing sucks, it sucks. So overall, really practice what you're writing. Remember, when you're writing a female character, it's not a representation of all women. Never think about your character as a representation of a whole group. They're just their own selves. Always write your characters like they're their own person with their own actions and thoughts and feelings. You don't need to validate everyone for your character to be good. In fact, I probably will feel more validated watching Mitsuri and Shinobu who fight in their own unique ways than I would ever if Captain Marvel or Rei just try to say that they were good enough themselves. Now, if you guys like Rey Skywalker or Captain Marvel, it's okay. Everyone has that one character that they like, no matter how bad it gets or how much other people dislike it. But if you're starting to write something and you like Captain Marvel, well, really look into your audience that you're trying to appeal to, because not everyone's gonna like what you like. Of course, not everyone's gonna like Demon Slayer, but due to the fact that it has good enough intentions with it, a wide audience can like it. In conclusions, and an audience will notice if you try. Okay, so get back to writing, get back to creating. This is Lisa Mona Reviews. Subscribe to my channel, click the bell, like my video, and comment down below what your favorite female characters are and why. And also comment if you would like more writing series in the future of comparisons or just advice in general. Of course, I'm not a professional, so don't take this too seriously if you don't like it. And thanks for watching. Bye.